Welcome to Environmental Concerns, a weekly TV show sponsored by Breathe California, which is the lung health organization throughout the state of California. Our guest today is Pete Christensen, who's co-director of the Clean Cities program. We're going to be talking with Pete and learn what that means and talk about a whole bunch of ways that you and your city can help reduce or stop climate change and a whole bunch of other good energy saving techniques. So be back with us after this public service announcement.
I have asthma, and so asthma, I can't do that many sports because I wheeze and then I have to take my inhaler. I can't do a lot of things other kids can do. What I learned at asthma camp is how to treat your asthma and don't hold back if you have asthma. Breathe California has made it easier for me to play sports and do other things that I couldn't do before.
Welcome back to Environmental Concerns. Breathe California, as I mentioned earlier, is the lung health organization throughout the state of California. Each year we provide assistance to typically more than 100,000 people with any of 13 different lung ailments, including COVID-19. If you want to volunteer or learn about something that you hear on the program, our website is under both Pete's and my names, lungsrus.org. Pete, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you for having me.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
My background is in sales, business development, marketing, business management for around 40 years. And I've been in the environmental arena for around 35 years with environmentally oriented companies and nonprofits. I started 35 years ago working on environmental and health and safety video training and consulting services, and then moved to another environmental video production company focusing more on environmental auditing training. And then we moved on to auditing software and also auditing checklist. Corporations especially have to comply with federal and state regulations, and they use auditors to go out through all their facilities, especially the larger companies that tend to pollute more. And they need training and knowing how to conduct audits and check on hazardous materials and emissions and everything, a whole gamut of different regulations they have to comply with. So I was basically in global regulatory compliance, domestic and global, for roughly 22 years, mainly environmental, but some health and safety, and even moved on near the end of that part of my career to an online service that had all the regulations online, whether all the federal CFRs, Code of Federal Regulations, and then also the state differences checklist to tell you the differences between the state and federal regulations, and also various plain English interpretations of the regulations and easy ways of accessing the regulations, and basically in helping environmental and health and safety compliance auditors do their job better and supporting them, which, if corporations are complying with all the environmental health and safety regulations as they should, then that's going to protect their employees, it's going to protect the environment and protect all the people, the consumers, so to speak. So I was very happy doing that work. And then I moved on from there to a nonprofit called the International Institute of Sustainable Transportation, which is a local nonprofit based in Santa Cruz that works with San Jose University, San Jose State University, pardon me, go Spartans, and they work with them on a type of technology concerning transportation called solar-powered automated transit networks. And we were working with the engineering department at San Jose State University, the professors and also the students, and working on developing that technology for 5 years, and recruiting other universities to get involved, and talking with local major corporations and county supervisors and mayors and vice mayors, council members, trying to pave the way for that type of transportation. Then I segued after 5 years over to a company called Magi SciTech, which did next generation carbon nanotube batteries for electric vehicles and solar battery energy storage. And then the pandemic hit, and we could no longer source our battery cells from China and Taiwan, so we had to close down. And I moved over to being a volunteer research fellow for the Romero Institute locally here in Santa Cruz, working on environmental policy and working on environmental legislation to get through the California Assembly and Senate. And we were successful last year in getting a bill on electric vehicles, really streamlining and simplifying the rebate process for electric vehicles. And the bill, which was Senate Bill, California Senate Bill 1230, was signed by the governor last year and put into law. And that's going to make it a lot easier for people that are applying for rebates for electric vehicles. And also, they don't have to wait, once it's finally implemented, they don't have to wait many months to get the rebate. It's a point of sale rebate. So once they get approval and they get the voucher for the rebate, then they take it right down to their dealership and get the money off, the 5 or 10 or 15,000, whatever it is, right there, which is very helpful, especially for middle income and lower income and underserved communities. And then I started with Silicon Valley Clean Cities Coalition about 3.5 months ago. Margot Seidner is the CEO of Breathe California, which hosts and manages, coordinates the Silicon Valley Clean Cities Coalition. And she's a co-director, and she's gradually stepping down as time goes on. And I am stepping forward to, to take more and more responsibility. But it's been great working with Silicon Valley Clean Cities Coalition thus far, and it's important work, and I'm glad to be doing it and hope to continue doing it for many years.
Well, good for you. My recollection is that the Clean Cities program won an award for excellence, I want to say, from the Bay Area Air Quality Management District for encouragement of cities to switch over to cleaner cars, whether they be hybrid or electric.
Yes, the Clean Cities Coalition are actually a nationwide group of coalitions. They are funded via grant funding by the U.S. Department of Energy through the U.S. Department of Energy's Vehicle Technology Office. And there are over 75 coalitions all around the country, and they cover roughly 82% of the nation's population. And our mandate is to reduce transportation-related greenhouse gas emissions and air pollutions. 2 main ways we do that is with alternative clean fuels and also electric vehicles. And also there are fuel economy things like idle reduction, et cetera, that we work on with all our stakeholders in our individual areas. And some of the Clean Cities coalitions are managed by cities, like the one up in San Francisco. The environmental department manages that coalition. Others are standalone nonprofits. With ours, from my understanding, is that we started with the Silicon Valley Clean Cities Coalition in 2006. It was being run by the city of San Jose, and then they, for some reason, wanted to pass that off to another organization, and Margot was running Breathe California, and Breathe California, works on lung health and air quality. So she thought it, as I saw it, and rightly so, as a natural fit because we're focusing on reducing air pollution and greenhouse gases. So Margot became the director of Silicon Valley Clean Cities Coalition, and Breathe California, the Bay Area, Golden Gate, and Central Coast became the host and coordinator for that this coalition. And they have been doing a great job ever since. Do want to point out the Clean Cities Coalitions were started back in 1993. So this year it is our 30th anniversary. And during those 30 years, Clean Cities Coalitions across the country have achieved a cumulative impact in reducing energy use equal to nearly 13 billion gasoline gallon equivalents through the implementation of diverse transportation projects. And nationwide, there's about 20,000 stakeholders that participate in the Clean Cities Coalitions. We are working all together to transform local and regional transportation markets. As I learn more about the Clean Cities Coalitions, it's a great idea. We are technically autonomous, but we are funded by the DOE. So we do send them reports quarterly, and they do ask us to do a few things here or there, but we basically are given a set of tasks we want to do. And as long as we're working hard to, again, reduce transportation-related greenhouse gases and air pollution, then we are essentially autonomous. But I think it's a great way for the federal government to touch base and get involved on the regional, local level while we maintain autonomy, but they support us and they have different websites and different services. They have their alternative fuels data center that has all sorts of information about compressed CNG, which is compressed natural gas, hydrogen vehicles, propane, liquefied propane, ethanol, biofuels, biodiesel, of course, electric vehicles and electric charging infrastructure. They also have their technical response service, which we can call if we get questions from our stakeholders about things going on. They wanted to know, sorry, I was distracted. They want to know about certain types of electric vehicles or electric trucks or charging infrastructure or certain fuels. Then we can call the Technical Response Center if we don't know immediately and get a response within 24 to 48 hours of that stakeholder's question.
Well, those reductions in contaminants going in the air are incredibly significant. Here in California, 90% of us are breathing unhealthy air, and nationwide it's about 70%. And the standards that we're talking about there are not strict enough, in that Breathe California's had to sue 2 or 3 times to get a more realistic standard for the health as a goal. So the program really is quite significant. We're going to take a break for 30 seconds and be back with Pete Christensen at the end of this and talk more about clean energy.
My name is Rene Montez. I've been using the CPAP machine, I would guess 10 years. I got so accustomed to it, I don't go anywhere without it. I take it with me everywhere. From the moment I put it on, I thought it was the greatest thing because the breathing was a lot easier. And after using it for a couple nights, I felt a lot of energy. Breathe California is fabulous.
This is Breathe California TV. It has a strong medical orientation in Breathe California. Our board is a lot of doctors and other healthcare professionals. but the emphasis on this show is mostly on what we're talking with Pete Christensen about, which is preventing damage to people by cutting back on pollutants rather than treating damaged lungs. So one of the things you mentioned, Pete, was idle reduction. You know, I suspect aren't too many of the members of our audience who know what that is.
Well, simply put, that is trying to get especially fleet operators, large trucks, school buses, to reduce the amount of time that they're idling. Okay. I am honestly not an expert in the area, but that is something that before I came on three and a half months ago. They've held listening sessions and training sessions and worked with school districts as far as clean cities. As far as Silicon Valley Clean Cities Coalition has worked with all our stakeholders in the area to work on idle reduction and giving them training in that. I've not gone through that training myself per se, but I have the basic knowledge. Basically, again, what we're trying to do is get them not to idle shorter and find reasons not to idle as long, because that puts up, not only does it waste fuel, but it also puts out, greenhouse gases and air pollutions.
Well, my recollection was that we've got quite spectacular results out of idle reductions from all the trucks at two major harbors, LA, Long Beach, and Oakland. Instead of having the trucks sitting around burning fuel, we're shutting them down, and just when they're needed do they crank it up. So that's pretty significant.
Yeah. There was a training conducted for drayage operators, independent drayage operators, back a number of months ago before I started, that serviced the Port of Oakland. And it was very important training and very well received. And also a listening session too, in that, to find out what their needs and how we can help them and support them in reducing their amount of emissions.
So I'm pleased. I didn't know this program started with San Jose, but with 14 cities in the county and about 35 special districts, including Santa Clara Valley Water District, which is pretty doggone big. That's an awful lot of other places to move towards getting clean vehicles.
Well, just to clarify, and I should have done this at the beginning, I apologize. It is called Silicon Valley Clean Cities Coalition, but technically we cover 5 counties in the area, not just Santa Clara County, which we call home because our office is based in San Jose, and I work out of my home office 4 days a week in Santa Cruz. But we also cover San Mateo County, Santa Cruz County, Monterey County, and San Benito County. So we have a lot of, we deal with public and government agency fleet managers, school districts, also private fleets, and of course, consumers. So we have a wide district and a lot of work to do, but it's very important. In 2019, over 8 million people died worldwide of diseases that were directly related to air pollution. And most of that pollution came from fossil fuels and from transportation. So it's a very important work we do. I think the figure was somewhere around 10 million last year worldwide. So we're, not only cleaning the air and helping with asthma and other lung problems, but we're saving lives. All of us are, by reducing emissions.
Absolutely. So in Santa Clara County, the worst spot for air pollution is Gilroy. And you mentioned San Benito County, where you would normally think it's pretty rural, but our bad air blows to them. So Hollister is as bad as Gilroy, and even as far south as Pinnacles National Park, we have serious problems. So all of us need to make a difference. I do know the state has been taking steps to reduce use of diesel fuels, which are viewed in air pollution as the devil incarnate. They're much worse than regular just gasoline emissions.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, because the third day I had started with Silicon Valley Clean Cities Coalition, we had a renewable diesel training, as it turns out. And though I have a lot of years environmental experience, I was really not that familiar with renewable diesel. Okay. And I found out that people that use diesel cars, or especially trucks, can use renewable diesel right now without any engine retrofits, and reduce their emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, and other emissions, because there's other emissions besides carbon, like nitrates of nitrogen oxide and particulate matter and organic reactive gases, et cetera, et cetera. So they can reduce those emissions right away by 65 to 70%, again, with no engine retrofits. And it's also roughly comparable to a gallon of diesel price-wise. And there are stations for renewable diesel in many locations across the Bay Area. You have to occasionally hunt for them, but it is available. So that's thank you for bringing that up.
So as you and I thought would happen when we were discussing this show, it keeps leading me to new questions. So what is renewable about renewable diesel?
Well, renewable diesel is different than biofuels, because it uses the same feedstock as biofuels, like vegetable oils or animal fats, things like that. Okay. But biodiesel uses a process of esterification, okay, to make the biodiesel. Renewable biodiesel uses a different process. They add hydrogen, and they heat it up, and they, along with, in the presence of a catalyst, and they heat the fuel up, or the feedstock up to a certain temperature. And that creates a hydrocarbon. So it's a different process than creating biofuels, and they are enabled. That enables them to call it renewable diesel, because it's.
So do you have any opinions about ethanol in cars and trucks? Yesterday in Iowa, 2 Republican candidates were turning into each other over ethanol. There wasn't much interested in scientifically what's good or bad about ethanol. It just.
Well, there are goods and bads in ethanol. I'm not a consummate expert. I'm learning every day at this job, and I have a good general knowledge of a number of things, but I can't drill down in everything. But ethanol does reduce emissions overall, but there are still some emissions to it. So there are some improvements that can be made on ethanol. It's a good bridge fuel, and it does come from natural matter, and you're not pulling it out of the earth. You're not mining, or drilling for it. So that's a beneficial thing, less harm to the environment in general. But there are positives, negatives to ethanol usage and productions. So it's better than using fossil fuels, but not as good as using an electric vehicle.
So what other things, if any, does your Clean Cities Coalition work on besides vehicles?
Well, it's mainly, as far as, it's all transportation. It does include charging infrastructure, as far as helping people getting grants. I'm not that experienced in the grant process. Margot's still taking care of it at this point. But there are a lot of people that can't afford, especially like fleets and school districts, et cetera, that can't afford to put in charging infrastructure for electric vehicles. And since we are funded by the DOE, they let us know about various grants, and we can go to them and ask them for support and information about grants that can help school districts and public fleet managers, and even private companies or consumers. But we mainly focus as far as we're transportation related. So infrastructure and vehicles is mainly what we focus on. I mean, we're all for everything else, but that's what we mainly focus on. That's our mandate, as far as transportation focused.
So where are cities in terms of going to all electric? Seems to me that that would entail them, at least every city having electric charging stations if they're going to all electric. So is my surmise that they'd be switching to electric power vehicles correct?
Yeah, that's in fact, we just had a listening session back a couple of months ago. Particularly challenging is police departments transitioning to electric vehicles. And it was a very interesting listening session. The DOE had asked us to check in with local police departments to find out how they're transitioning to electric vehicles. And there are a lot of challenges there because right now, no company makes specific police pursuit certified vehicles. And the thing is that I think a lot of the major companies don't think it's a big enough market to focus on it, but there is some work being done with Ford and GM, and they are looking at coming out with some new vehicles in that area. So right now, most of the police departments, if they buy electric vehicles in the area, for those I talked to, and as we heard during the session, they use them just for, not for police pursuit, or actually they just use them for standard activities. There are a couple, the city of Fremont and the city of Seaside have each converted a couple of Teslas to be police pursuit, but there are a lot of challenges there because they're not designed for that. And, the room for the passengers in the back, room for all their equipment, the fact that there's a lot of glass windows on the Teslas and they have 5 antennas they have to connect to metal somewhere on the car. And they really love the riding, et cetera, how the vehicles handle. But there has to be some improvement, and corporations, the car companies really have to start coming out with specific police pursuit certified vehicles to really make it right.
So we've got about 15 seconds left. You got a summary for the show for our audience?
Well, thank you for having me. And you can look us up on the website, thelungsareus.org. Look we're under Breathe California, Silicon Valley Clean Cities Coalition. You have my direct email there on the website. You have my phone number. If you email me a question, if I don't know the answer, I'll find it for you.
So Pete, you're doing great things. We need to wrap up now, but maybe we can have you come back soon and tell us some more about your great programs. Thanks again.
Thank you, Terry. And thank you for the wonderful shows and the wonderful work you do.